Hi, it's Moser with a quick tutorial on elements and where to get information about them. By the end of this video, you should be able to distinguish elements from compounds, explain the best place to get information about elements, and describe the four major types of elements as well as their characteristics. Remember that elements are substances which maintain characteristics down to a single atom. So a single atom of gold has the same basic characteristics as a gram of gold. A single atom of carbon has the same characteristics as a whole gram of carbon atoms. And they're arranged on the periodic table in order of increasing atomic number. Because we're faced with this! Matter and atoms and elements! What can pull it all together? Well, yeah, we already gave that away. The periodic table! Here to save the day. This is the single best source of information about matter that exists, as far as we know, in our universe. If someone has a better one, they haven't come forward with it. And it's the standard tool used by chemists to store and organize information about all of the elements. So, a few things about the periodic table. Number one, as mentioned, it is arranged in order of increasing atomic number. The atomic number is the number of protons, and we start off here with hydrogen, which has 1 proton. We move across the table, disregard the fact that hydrogen appears twice, to helium, which has 2, and just like reading, going from left to right and then down to the next row, we go to lithium with 3, beryllium with 4, 5, 6, 7, up to neon with 10, and then we do the whole thing over again, always adding 1 proton as we go. Okay, that seems simple enough. You should know that in addition to being organized by increasing atomic number, it's important to realize that the periodic table is also organized into rows and columns. So the rows go side to side, just like a row of seats in an auditorium, and these are called periods. So we have period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on and on and on. The other way in which the periodic table is organized is into columns, and these columns are called groups. So, the groups are also numbered, though the numbering system is a little weirder. We have group 1, group 2, group 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. There are some weird ones in there, but you're not aware of them yet, so we won't talk about that. And while there's really no pattern to the characteristics of the elements within a period, there are patterns that we'll discover later. Within groups, the elements in a group have so much in common that groups are also referred to as families. So within a family or a group, that's a column on the periodic table, we tend to see elements that have very similar characteristics, with only a few exceptions. And there are clear patterns within each group. So now, let's talk about the 4 different types of elements. So we'll start off by talking about metals. Now the metals aren't only what you think of when I say metal, such as copper and gold and iron. The metals include a lot of things that you wouldn't normally think of as metals, like lithium and calcium, magnesium, rubidium, some things you've probably never even heard of. But regardless of whether they're what you think of as a metal or not, they all share some important characteristics. They are all good conductors of heat and electricity, and that's based on the way that their electrons move. Most of them are solid at room temperature. There's only one exception. Can you think of what it is? Go ahead, hit pause. Yeah, it's mercury. They're malleable. They're able to be hammered into thin sheets, like the tin foil that you could go buy at the grocery store. And they're ductile. They can be pulled into thin wires. As a matter of fact, some of those characteristics make them pretty important for humans. Copper is used in wiring that runs our entire electronically based civilization, along with other great conductors like gold that's used in very delicate stereo components and computer components. There are also some interesting medical uses for some metals. Lithium is actually used to treat bipolar disorder by correcting a brain chemistry imbalance. And metals like sodium and potassium play important roles in the body, in the sodium and potassium pumps that we find in our cells. Now, everything that the metals are, the non-metals are not. And they're this relatively small group over on the right side of the periodic table. Where the metals are great conductors, the nonmetals are fantastic insulators, meaning they're very bad conductors of both heat and electricity. While most metals, all but one actually, are solids at room temperature, the nonmetals are primarily gases at room temperature. And while metals can be hammered into sheets, pulled into wires, nonmetals, when they are solids, tend to be very brittle. They shatter easily. There are fewer of them than the metals, but they're pretty important to us. The nonmetals actually make up the major components of our atmosphere. I'm pretty fond of oxygen. How about you? And then we have the metalloids. Well, you know, there's one in every table. The metalloids are interesting in that they're neither metals nor nonmetals, but they have some characteristics of each. So a lot of these elements that are metalloids will conduct, but only under certain conditions. This has made them really useful in some modern applications, such as computers. Most of our computer-based world runs on silicon. Perhaps you've heard of Silicon Valley? Right, those computer chips, which are on everything from your cell phone to your TV to your stove or your microwave, are running on silicon, which can be persuaded to conduct electricity selectively, enabling modern computer circuitry. The last major category of element that we're going to talk about are the noble gases, and they are actually in their own group, group 18 on the periodic table. We call them noble because they tend to not interact with other elements, just like at one time the nobility of much of the world wouldn't have interacted with the peasants. These are unreactive. They are all gases at room temperature, as implied by the name noble gases, and they have some interesting applications. Neon and argon, krypton and xenon are all used in lighting. Those glowing tubes that give off neon orange or neon pink, those are actually noble gases trapped in a low pressure tube with current being run through them. What's more interesting is the use of gases like argon for gas shielded welding. Look it up. That's all we're going to talk about on the periodic table. So let's recap. Can you distinguish an element from a compound? An element being something that's a single type of atom. Can you explain where to get information about the elements? The periodic table. And can you describe the characteristics of the four major types of elements? Good. You're ready to go. Good luck.